We order our pizza slices that are about the size of our heads, and all of a sudden you hear the bell ring, like the door hits the bell, and you just hear the guy behind the counter go, "Hey, boss, how you doing? What can I get for you?" And we just turn around. Nick taps me and goes, "Is that Jerome Bettis?" And I turn around. Sure as hell was Jerome Bettis.
Wearing a Tigers hat.
Wearing a Detroit Tigers hat in the flesh. And he got 2 whole pizzas. And I walk up to him like, "Hey, can we get a picture with you?" And he was like, "Absolutely, man. Come on." And like we each get on an arm with the bus. Biggest human being I think I've ever seen in my life. And reeked of something.
The bus was high as hell. My man was on top of Mount Everest.
And speaking of getting the party started,
for the victory lap though. They ain't never seen nothing like this before. Lit the room when I came through the front door. Ask me if I stress overcome, what for? Train under trees, please walk my sycamore. Touch burning sands, cross lands and stormy shore seasons in the year, Switch gears, with keeping haters in the rear. At the blood, sweat and tears and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear. It's a J, we break through. 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 It's a J, we break through.
Good evening, afternoon, or morning, whenever you're listening to this podcast, everyone. It is the Gridiron Podcast, the only podcast in the world that exclusively covers our two loves, Formula One and football. All kinds of football. We might talk about some different kinds of football tonight because, hey, we got Copa America and the Euros going on, but I know Nick and Katie don't really care about that stuff as Nick shakes his head. I'm Sean Barie. Welcome to episode 36 of the Gridiron Podcast.
Sorry.
If you are watching on Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube, up in the left-hand corner, we got the bald-headed behemoth himself, Nick Shook, holding down the fort in the land. Yes, sir. Flexing on him.
I was called a behemoth, so I decided to lean into the role. And to my right, for those watching on YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, is who?
It's Katie Caldwell, the Canadian Queen. Guys, how you doing? It's episode 36. Let's get rolling.
The what episode, Sean? This was a good Steelers one.
Come on, Sean.
Well, guys, I guess you could say that I'm driving the bus of this episode.
There we go. There we go.
Glad we were all on the same page.
Have we told, Katie, we've told you the story of how we met the bus, right?
No.
Ooh, tell the story.
Oh, we haven't told her the story of how we met the bus?
Let's do it.
Oh, man.
This sounds like the perfect time, Sean.
So this is a great story. So Nick and I, we are in college. It is summer? No, it was winter break. Nick comes to visit me in Pittsburgh. We are not quite old enough to go out and enjoy adult beverages yet, but we still go down to the neighborhood of Pittsburgh that is the bar scene called the South Side, because while you can find music venues, bars, and restaurants down there, you could also find hookah lounges. You could also find pretty much anything that up to 20 years old. Exactly. That you like. So like, I've been going there since high school. It was awesome. So I take Nick down there. We go to one of the hookah lounges, and then it's like 2 a.m. And I'm like, hey, man, we have to hit up this pizza spot because it is just, you know what? No, Nick, we were 21 at that time.
It's New York style pizza.
Yeah.
We were in your car. You almost ran somebody over because he was crossing too closely to where we were coming out of the
I
alley.
remember that. The guy kicked my car.
Yeah.
And Nick got out and was like, what the hell did you just say? And this guy ran away. Anyway, we go to this corner pizza joint. It's the place where they have the pizza behind the glass. They take the slice out for you and they stick it in the oven at like 700 degrees for like a minute and a half. We order our pizza slices that are about the size of our heads, and all of a sudden you hear the bell ring, like the door hits the bell, and you just hear the guy behind the counter go, "Hey, boss, how you doing? What can I get for you?" And we just turn around. Nick taps me and goes, "Is that Jerome Bettis?" And I turn around. Sure as hell was Jerome Bettis.
Wearing a Tigers hat.
Wearing a Detroit Tigers hat in the flesh. And he got 2 whole pizzas. And I walk up to him like, hey, can we get a picture with you? And he was like, absolutely, man. Come on. And like we each get on an arm with the bus. Biggest human being I think I've ever seen in my life. And and reeked of something.
The bus was high as hell. My man was on top of Mount Everest.
Dude was blazing. Oh
Yeah,
my
Sean, we're in a
God.
safe space. We're among friends and listeners, many of whom are the same.
It was hilarious
cloud.
because it was immediately evident as soon as we even got to within like a foot of him what he smelled like. But he was nice enough, took a picture with us, and we still got a picture to that day. Yeah, that was a great night. So there's our Jerome Bettis story. There we go.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, so it is
I had
episode
not heard
36,
that.
the bust episode, and Katie just learned something new today.
Wow.
Can't believe we haven't told you that story. Yeah. Anyway, it is episode 36. We got a lot to cover tonight, guys, on the Gridiron Podcast. As always, please drop us a like, a listen, subscribe to us, give us a 5-star review, and now you can even email us because we're in the 21st century. What? I know, it's crazy. Where is our email on this rundown, Katie?
Just keep going down. You didn't memorize our
Going down.
email, Sean?
No, I haven't. So here's our email. It's the Gridiron Podcast 3. Damn you other two at gmail.com. That's the Gridiron Podcast 3 at gmail.com. Go ahead and send us an email. We'll read it out if it's PG to R. I don't know if we can do any of that NC-17 stuff, but if it's PG to R, we'll read it out on the podcast. And as always, you can drop us a comment in the chat and we'll read it out here as well. Like I said, got a lot to get to. First off, we have to get to a recap of the Grand Prix de Montreal. Katie, we were in your homeland this week, and dare I say, race of the year in Canada.
Maybe the last couple years. That one banged. That was a good race. That's my one sentence review.
Okay, great review, Katie. Yeah, so if you didn't know, race finished as Max Verstappen P1, Lando Norris P2, George Russell P3. Doesn't sound all that crazy, right, when you think about it. Like, all right, you got a Red Bull in first, a McLaren in second, and then a Mercedes in third. They haven't done great this season, but hey, good for George. It was a wet race. Maybe he just had some luck. No. This race, it had everything. It had a Haas charging up 9 spots or 10 spots to P4. It had rain. It had dry track. It had a wet track again. It had a safety car. 2 teams failed to finish the race, being Ferrari and Williams. I mean, what didn't this race have, guys?
Oh, it didn't have George being super British on the radio.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There wasn't a holy moly or a what was
Pootling
it?
About.
Yes.
Poodling about or poodling around.
Pootling about.
That was the only big standout that it didn't have, but other than that.
This is the first race I think that I've watched since the 2021 season in which every lap was worth watching. Like, I talked to a good friend of mine. He chimes in on the show sometimes. His name's Michael. He's a big F1 guy. He got into it at the same time we all did. And he didn't see it live, and he tried to record it via his DVR or whatever, and ended up accidentally recording college baseball. So he missed the full race. And I said, dude, you got to go out of your way. It is worth it to go 10 steps beyond the normal limit, because this is the first race I've seen in a long time in which from lap 1 to lap 70, something exciting happened on every lap. Guys, I went golfing in the about noon, played 9, went to the storage unit to grab some stuff from my dad's storage unit. I sat, and I also went to Chipotle in between because I was starving. I sat in the parking lot at Chipotle and watched the first 25 laps. It wasn't until the first safety car that I decided I had enough time to be able to drive to the storage unit. Kept it on the entire time, sat outside the storage unit behind another group that was like in a unit 2, slots over. They probably thought I was preparing to murder them. I was just sitting there watching the race on my phone in the car, and I couldn't move. Like, I was like, I can't start grabbing stuff because I can't walk away from this race. How often in our F1 fandom have we been able to just go, all right, the cars are spread out. We know who's going to win. We can walk away. I fell asleep during Monaco. Didn't miss anything important. Like, that's happened on multiple occasions. How often do we have a race in which every lap has you on the edge of your seat? It's super rare. It is a race that I hope that they replay on ESPN 8 The Ocho, on ESPN2, ESPN News, and if ESPNU still exists, put it on there too, because damn it, it was a freaking blast from start to finish.
I rewatched the race last night, and you're right. Because there were spots that I kind of missed because I was watching it on my phone at the gym, and from, when I go to the locker room to the car and then turn the race back on my phone, like I missed a couple of things, and I felt like I missed stuff. I watched the entire thing back last night up to the point where, okay, I saw the rest, up until lap 25. That's when I saw everything else. I'm like, okay, now I know what happens from here on out. But I couldn't look away. I still watched the rest of the race. It was that good.
My plan tonight is to rewatch it. Because I bet there's little things here and there that you miss. And
it was a cozy night, Katie. Like, it just sit back and be like, oh, yeah.
Cozy night. Pour a glass of wine.
Yeah.
So just to recap, this race was just chaotic from the beginning because you had a Mercedes on pole. And during qualifying, Max Verstappen tied George Russell with a time of 1:12 flat, 0.000. Now, I did see that Formula One and the FIA, they do record the times to the tens of thousands, but they don't release that information. So somewhere, someone knows who finished that lap quicker.
Who started on pole.
No, because
no, they don't release it, Nick. They don't release it. They only measure to the thousandth.
And it's only because he completed that lap first that he was entitled to that P1.
George Russell posted the 1:12.000 first, therefore he is entitled to the pole. Max could have been a 1/10,000th faster than George, but we will never know because they only measure to the 1/1000th. So George Russell started on pole. Max Verstappen with the exact same qualifying time started in second, and then Lando Norris 2/100ths of a second behind those two started in third. This race was just destined to be good from the start. We knew it was going to rain. A lot of people started on the inners. Two drivers started on the full wet tires. That being the good old Yankee Dandy Doodles from Haas F1. And man, did they charge up the field, because I feel like the full wets were warranted at the start of the race. They called it right, and they charged up the field. Kevin Magnussen looked like a man that was about to take P1 if it was just a little bit more wet on the track for a couple more laps. He made it from P14 all the way up to P4 with ease by lap, 6 or 7?
That was so wild.
That's when the tracks, that's when the track started to dry out. So they had to bring him in because the wets weren't working anymore. And unfortunately, he had a 9-second pit stop because his team wasn't ready with the frickin' inters.
Yeah.
And he fell all the way back to P14. So it was all for naught. But man, was it fun to watch. From there on out, you had George hold a lead for 20-some laps. His tires started to fall away. That's when Max lost a position to Lando, because somehow when that track started to dry, the McLaren came to life. Lando passed Max, then passed George, and then built up a 10-second lead, 11-second lead on those two drivers. And that is when Logan Sargent had a spin.
Pulled a
bringing
Nicholas
out a safety car. Bringing out a safety car, reshuffling the pack back to the order of Max Verstappen, George Russell, Lando Norris. It ends up being a Max Verstappen P1, a Lando Norris P2, and a George Russell P3.
Wait. So you missed a detail there. Why did it restack that way? And this is an important detail.
This isn't okay. No, you're right. So what happened was Logan crashes into the wall. He spins out. They call a safety car. Lando gets picked up by the safety car and is not brought in when he should have been brought in by his team. It has shades of Sochi 2021 to it. Not
Lando, do you want to change tires?
Extent.
No.
Not quite to that extent, but yeah, kind of. It's almost the same scenario. Tell him to come in. That's not Lando's decision to make this time around. That's the team's decision to say, hey, come in now. They're going to call a safety car. We need to do this before you catch up to the safety car. He catches up to the safety car, loses a bunch of time behind the safety car, and then by the time he gets into the pits, he's lost too much time to retake the lead in the lead.
Oh, and just watching him come out of the pits, and if he had a bit more heat in those tires, he's just kind of spinning out, and it was so close. And I think everyone was hoping for him to come out in front of Max. It was just...
Well, that's the thing, and that's the beauty of the call is he ends up building enough of a gap to shoot for the overcut later in the race. And as he comes out crofty, as you know, I'm a crofty loyalist, and I hear him going, and Lando Norris comes out in front of Max Verstappen. And within seconds, not even multiple seconds, maybe 3 seconds, he hits a little wet patch and gets a little skittish, and Max just right around him.
Well, that was
I was watching Jake's, and he's like, he's not going to make it. Like, I think all of us knew. We're like, oh, this is.
That was later in the race, but yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the second pit stop where Lando overtook George. And then, there was that one spot. There's that wet spot on the outside of the pit lane exit. Yeah. It was fun, though, to watch. I don't know if you guys picked up on this. The cars, when they had the inters on, they were trying, while it was drying out, trying to find the wet spots on the track, which just made for such a weird visual because you're used to these cars following behind each other in a line, in a parade. And this was almost more like if you watch IndyCar or NASCAR, kind of like this, where they'll follow each other in a line, and then as soon as they're on a straight, they'll split, just trying to find clean air, or in this case, trying to find a wet spot for those tires to grip a little bit better. So this was just an interesting race all the way around. Quick mention, both Williams cars did not finish. Logan Sargent with his spin, and then Alex Albon crashes out after Carlos Sainz had a spin. You also had Charles Leclerc. What happened with him? Engine problems?
It was an engine problem early. They
bad
brought him
tire
into the pit to
strategy. This was Ferrari 2022.
Sure was.
Live and in person, man.
Yeah.
For one night only. Ferrari 2022 is back.
They're on the radio, and they're like, he's going, man, the engine's bad. They're like, we know, just keep pushing. And it's like, he can't push. His engine's bad. And we know, just keep pushing. We're figuring it out. He comes in to reset the wheel. That doesn't do anything. And then eventually, before long, you see them retire the car. And it was like, terrible day for the old Monaco GP race winner. And then Carlos spins out and does a nice little donut in the grass. That was fun. Like,
that was awesome. What is he trying to do?
It was just carnage throughout the entire race.
The radio message that I loved from Charles was to his race engineer, and he said, how much time am I losing on the straights? And he came back with him and said, quite a bit. And he goes, I am not happy with this answer. When I ask you something, tell me. I was like, ooh, Charles getting feisty here.
Yeah.
And they were like 0.5 seconds. He was losing half a second on the straights alone. So, and Canada has a couple of straights. So they eventually retired him. Bad day for Ferrari, which brings McLaren back into within 40 points of them, with Lando finishing in second and Oscar finishing P5. Another case of Oscar just not being able to manage his tires until the end of the race. He's got to figure that out. Mercedes, however, again, George finished on pole, came home in third. They're going to want that one back. But Lewis was right there and finished P4. When I look at this race, I see 4 drivers that could have won this race.
Yeah.
Max, who did, Lando, who was in the lead at one point, actually twice, George, who started on pole, and then maybe Lewis on an outside chance. When's the last time you said to yourself, 4 drivers can win this race?
Oh, it's been a long time. But
when
was the last time we saw a Mercedes near the podium, or maybe 2 cars in the podium?
Yeah.
Which begs my question, is Mercedes finally back? They fixed their front wing. They have a new front wing. They brought upgrades to Canada, and they look very quick.
I think they're back, but man, the Mercedes and Lewis relationship is just so interesting.
Yeah.
Because it feels a little like we've talked a lot about Red Bull and the chaos that they have going on internally, but they were so far out ahead. Now they're not really anymore. This kind of has a weird, like, Lewis and Mercedes is just so, like, what, I don't even know how to describe it right now. It just feels really messy with them.
Well, you think this is the first race in which he actually seriously competed for a podium all the way to the end of the race? Like, it wasn't until George was able to get around him in the last 5 or so laps. We were looking at a reality in which Lewis is going to be on a podium. He's going to be P3 behind Max and Lando.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That was his peak, but still, he was going to get on a podium. And I was like excited for Katie, closet Lewis fan. and I was like, yes, it's going to happen. Like, we're going to have so much to talk about, and Katie's going to be happy about her favorite driver when she's been left in the abyss for so long. It's great. And then he gets picked off by George, who did not race the cleanest when it came to battling, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, get that in a second.
Yeah.
And then after the race, Lewis is asked about his performance over the weekend, and he said it was one of his worst weekends in a long time. And I'm thinking, dude, you almost finished on the podium. This is the first time your car's been competitive. It looks like you finally kind of figured it out and are able to drive it competitively. He was in a long battle with Fernando Alonso, 2 veterans of the sport, battling, lap for lap. And then he comes out and says that. And that just points
Mhm.
to me exactly what you said, Katie, which is that this relationship just must be bad.
Even like I don't know who's directing things behind the scenes, but there was a situation where they had posted George's trophy and then saying like our first trophy, whatever, and then somebody was saying like, what about Lewis's sprint? And like there's a bunch of things that they just don't post about with Lewis. Like it all feels very strange, and like pour one out for the social media admin because they're not making a lot of these decisions, but they had commented it's a plaque, not a trophy. So that went very viral. So then they ended up deleting that, and then they made a second post being like, oh yeah, like Lewis actually has, and it all just feels very like, man, you have a 7-8, we all know the asterisk, time world champion, arguably the best driver of all time with you, and it feels so icky that this is the way he's going out. Like it should be this big celebratory goodbye, gratitude, all these milestones, and he's felt so like tossed to the curb, which just blows my mind. And if I'm Ferrari, I'm sitting there going like, come home.
Yeah,
like it feels like he's already part of that team.
This is we've already seen videos of him like signing Ferrari fans like hats and T-shirts and stuff like that. I forget that we do have to take a step back and think like this is a European sport and kind of a uniquely European sport. And I feel like once someone announces, "Hey, I'm out, I'm leaving," that person's essentially cut off. Like they're just receiving a paycheck and they're showing up to work to do nothing almost. I'm not saying Lewis isn't trying. I'm saying he's been in a bad car, a mediocre car the last couple of years, and he's used to winning races. So, I mean, you try telling the best driver of all time, "Hey, we have a crap car. Go out and do your best." He's not going to be that motivated. Like, come on. I think we're also used to seeing in North America, we send our stars off with fanfare. I'm trying to think of, I mean, what's a good one I can think of for Canada, Katie, where you sent off a hockey player?
I'm thinking about a Tom Brady situation.
Or how about Roberto Luongo for
Oh,
Vancouver? There you go.
right to my heart with that one.
Like he left, he went to Florida, but you still love him. Wayne Gretzky left
and
he
paid
went
his
to LA.
salary for 17 more years.
You still love him. Like
difference.
we do that. Like we want to send our stars off with fanfare and with style, even if they're leaving us to go somewhere else. I don't think that's necessarily the case in Europe so much. When that happens, it's like, all right, F you, bye.
I
It's
get
very
that with
awkward
all
very quick.
other drivers though, but like, and I know that F1 is so ruthless and there's so much money and power and politics with it, like even more than a lot of other sports. Exactly. But man, it's Lewis. Like that's what blows my mind with everything is it's Lewis and the team and what they accomplished together. I get that it's not usually as much fanfare outside of North America, but it just feels like if there's one exception, it's Lewis Hamilton.
For the point that Sean just made, I empathize with Lewis very much for reasons I'm not going to divulge on here. But what I really was blown away by later was the fact that Mercedes doubled down in covering their own ass. They put out a video today of one of their person. I don't know if it was one of their head engineers or whatever it was, explaining why they put him on hards when medium was clearly the faster tire, and it cut off abruptly. And it didn't really explain anything, and it felt very staged and very state media, oh well, every situation in which we put tires on the car is dependent on both the team and the driver and blah blah, and then it just ends. And I was like, I didn't learn anything from that. Why did you feel the need to post that? Are you really covering your own tracks that much to try to save face because you know that you're selling this driver down the river? It's wild to me that the guy who carried this team to so much prominence and success is suddenly just being left out on the curb solely because he decided to go to a better team. How about if you actually did better with your car design over the last 2 years? Maybe he wouldn't have left. Maybe you'd be competing. Instead, you screwed up. He decided to go to a better place for himself, and you're bitter about it, and you're treating him like that. It's just ugly.
If I can go back to our original question on the banner, which is Mercedes back? My answer is yes, but also no. Because the car is better, yes, but you have this inner turmoil, this struggle between the team and Lewis, the greatest driver of all time. You also have George, who is not used to this spotlight on him that much. Yes, he has a race win under his belt, but we saw this in Canada. He made several mistakes that prevented him not only from winning the race, but from beating Lando. P2 was for the taking for George. And actually, the race win was as well. He was fighting Max in that final stint until Lando caught up to him. Then he had to deal with Lando. Lando passed him because of a mistake. Yeah, and then
he's not an elite
then
driver.
He got put on the hard tire. Yeah. He makes mistakes. We can count on him to make mistakes, and he did that also at Williams. You forget that he made mistakes at Williams, and I think kind of brushed it under the rug a little bit because he was at Williams. He was in a crap car. He was learning. Now that he's in a top team and he continues to make the same mistakes, you're going, this guy really isn't that great under pressure. He still needs to prove himself in that regard. He's a good driver. I'm not going to put him on the same level as Lando, Charles, and Carlos, who I kind of put in that same group right below Max and Lewis, right? Like, I'm not going to put him with those drivers. That leaves him like a C-tier driver. And that's why I'm going to say, yeah, Mercedes is back, but also I don't know how far that's really going to take them when you still have problems to deal with. Lando doesn't make mistakes. He very rarely makes mistakes.
Yeah. I still think I'd have him in that tier, maybe at the lower end of it, but I would still have him in that tier. I think it's been interesting seeing the discourse too about, I don't see a lot of, especially like from Toto and the team, of like, yeah, he's our number one guy. He's our driver. It feels like it's like the number one boy is like Kimi Antonelli. Like it feels like he's already been placed into being the second driver in that team before we even technically know who's in that seat. It's been really interesting.
Feels like a rebuilding year. Like they're just like, we just got to get through this year before they bring the prospects up from AAA and really go crazy.
But they are fighting, and that's exciting because I didn't mean to rhyme there. Sorry. Because realistically, going into any race now, we have 4 teams, 7 drivers. Well, okay, we have 3 teams and Max Verstappen that could fight for a race win.
There it is.
Sorry, Checo. We'll get to you in a second. But speaking of teams that are kind of dealing with a little bit of inner turmoil, we got to talk about Alpine.
Oh my God.
Because the tea in France, and I know they prefer their cafe au lait, but the tea in France is scalding hot. Oh my gosh. So we all know that Esteban Ocon is on his way out, right, at Alpine. He had the whole run-in with Pierre Gasly where he just yeeted himself into his teammate in Monaco on lap 1 under a red flag last 2 weeks ago, I should say. But this week, Alpine came back and gave him team orders to let Pierre pass him. And he didn't really follow those team orders to the second it was given. He kind of messed around a little bit, but here's his words after the race. He eventually did let Pierre pass him. And then when he was told that they were not going to switch positions back, which is the case if one driver passes another teammate and cannot get ahead of the driver in front, which is the point of team orders, they usually will switch back at the end of the race. Alpine did not do that, and Esteban was like, this emoji, interesting. After the race, he was asked about it, and he said, I'm happy for the team to be able to score with both cars, but the order should have been reversed on this occasion. I got the instructions to let Pierre pass with 2 laps to go to catch Daniel, who was 2.5 seconds in front. So the call made no sense. But I did my part of the job, which is always being a team player. I've always respected the instructions. I don't know about that, Esteban. I don't know about that. Put an asterisk.
You sure about that?
Yeah, really? You
sure about that?
You?
That has always been the case, and have never done anything different in my career. Again, I don't know about that. I've done my job, but not the team. It is very sad. I started last. We took the right decisions. At every point, I was able to fight a lot quicker cars in that moment. It felt good, but it was a bit bitter end, but I'm optimistic for the rest of the year. He also went on to say that, he wasn't being nice because nice guys don't finish in this sport. He basically said, nice guys aren't great in this sport. Here's the full transcript of Esteban Ocon's conversation with his race engineer. Esteban, we have to let Pierre... Should I try this in a French accent?
No.
I took 5 years of French.
I mean,
no, okay.
if you want to go there.
Esteban, we have to let Pierre through, please. Gap behind him, 2 seconds to Hulkenberg. Esteban, what's the reason? Race engineer, we need to try and attack Ricardo. Esteban, yeah, forget it. I love this already. Okay, that is a request. Got 3 laps to go. Esteban, are you giving the place back after or not? That's what I'm working on. Okay, I let him by. Understood. Ocon lets Gasly through on lap 69 of 70 on turn 8. So basically with a lap and a half left to go, Esteban held on to that position for a while, basically ensuring that Pierre could not go ahead and fight Daniel. Esteban, the cars are not swapping places. Push to the end, please. Esteban, yeah, amazing. Thank you. Amazing. Thank you. His race engineer goes, okay, radio is still on. Esteban, okay, mate. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, okay. No comments. Too nice. Okay, mate.
Esteban Ocon, noted nice guy, noted teammate of the year.
His race engineer goes on to say, okay, listen, we still came 10th. We still got a point, okay? It's a long way to get to yet, okay? I know. It's frustrating. That's 4 I knows.
He knows, okay? He knows.
Esteban then goes on to say, I've done what I had to do, which is most important, but you guys didn't do what you had to do. That's it.
Boy, I'll tell you what, this sure sounds like a toxic relationship to me.
The team is scalding.
And the timing of the announcement. With no, he's going here. There's no plan. It was just like, he's out of here. 2 minutes before race weekend, get him out. He's out.
If you want to read between the lines, guys, as I hold up 3 fingers, Esteban was told, given team orders. Esteban said, why? And then basically was like, let me think about it for a second. Okay, that makes sense. And then 2 laps after he was given the team orders, he followed the team orders. Then proceeded to say, I was the good guy in this situation because I did what I was told. My dad used to tell me, do what you're told when you're told. It wasn't so much that I did what I was told. It was I did what I was told when I was told. Esteban did not do that. And now he's trying to play the victim.
He did cook with that.
Sounds like a Bob Barie statement if I've ever heard one.
That is a Bob Barie statement. So, I don't know about Esteban playing the victim here like he is. I don't know if he's the good guy in this situation. I think he was trying to make himself look. Obviously, he's still trying to shop himself around the teams to next year, whether it's Williams, Haas, Stake F1, Kick Sauber.
Gotta
Audi,
sell yourself,
whatever.
man. You gotta sell yourself.
But I don't think he's doing as good of a job at it as he thinks he is. I think he thinks that, I'm the golden boy. I did no wrong. Buddy, I just read your transcript out. Like, anybody with a brain can read that and go, yeah, he's not the best to work with. And I'm sorry, I'm taking up all your guys' time, but here's my 2 cents. Esteban, why do we put him in such high regard? He was the second driver at Force India behind Sergio Perez. He was the second driver at Renault behind Daniel Ricciardo. He was the second driver at Renault/Alpine behind Fernando Alonso. And he is not the clear driver ahead of Pierre Gasly. And clearly they're keeping Pierre over him. So why do we keep hanging around with this guy?
I don't have an answer.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't have an answer either. I don't know.
And just like, it's the lack of self-awareness for me that he just doesn't comprehend that maybe he isn't always the nicest guy to work for and work with. It kind of blows my mind. But yeah, he hasn't done a great job in any way, on track, off track, of selling himself in such a competitive environment. I don't necessarily think he will have a seat next season, and I don't think that's such a bad thing.
The only way that he's sold himself is as a malcontent. Or as one New England sports broadcaster once said on a daily talk show about Tom Brady's kid, he's being a pissant.
A pissant?
Yes.
I think that's all we have to talk about Alpine, though, because that is the story of Alpine, who is
they're just
doing
so
better.
Messy too.
They're doing better, but they are messy. You said it, Katie. I alluded to this earlier, though. We do have to talk about Sergio Perez a little bit because he gets a new 2-year contract with Red Bull, which I don't believe we've talked about on this podcast yet. Gets a brand new 2-year contract and then proceeds to finish P18 in Monaco and he didn't finish in Canada, but didn't even make it out of Q1 in Canada. This is a guy who's supposed to be up there fighting with Max Verstappen and keeping everyone else off Max. And right now, Max is fighting with one hand tied behind his back. Still winning, but fighting with one hand tied behind his back. Lewis never had to deal with this when he had Valtteri on his wing. But for some reason, and we saw it last year with Sergio, it kind of taken a nosedive this time last year. But man, this nosedive has been even deeper and sharper this year. What is going on in that second Red Bull seat?
Mismanagement, complacency, accepting the fact that you have one good driver and you don't know how to replace him with another one, even if one good driver is going to be available.
Money.
Yes,
hold on,
that's a big one. And well, Sean, here's another thing. Familiarity and comfort are seductive in ways that will keep you doing the same thing that you should be doing for much longer than you should. And I think that's what they're doing.
My old station, my first ever TV station that I worked for in Illinois, had their slogan was "Better Together."
Don't rewrite your history. That was the second TV station you worked for.
I don't count the first one.
What was the first, Sean?
The first sports job I ever had in Illinois.
Right. Specific.
Their slogan was "Better Together," and I always thought that was the weirdest slogan because when you're telling
Sean's
someone,
not a Jack Johnson fan, apparently.
When you're telling someone we're better together, that means like they're thinking about not being with you.
Ooh,
like that's weird.
When we're together.
So
yeah, Sean's better when we're together. I forget the rest of the words.
You done? No. You done? No, Nick. Just 1 out of 10. Good job. But I feel like that. Yeah, you kind of made a point there. It's familiarity, it's comfortability, and I think Red Bull is like, well, we're losing Adrian Newey. Our boss can't stop sexting his, mistress. Sergio, you're our guy.
Who is an employee at the company,
yes.
and the power dynamics and all the bad, awful things.
Yes. Yeah, there's too many fires to put out.
Allegedly.
There's a few fires in the paddock right now, you guys.
Yeah.
It is wildfire season in the paddock.
Yeah.
But you re-sign Sergio Perez and you snub one Yuki Tsunoda. And I will give the floor to Katie because I know she has many feelings about this.
I shared this wasn't the strongest Yuki race. Things were going great for him, which there have been not too many like Yuki misses this season. He's been like the Max Verstappen of like finishing just at the tail end of the points. Like he's been so consistent and so good. This wasn't his best weekend, but I shared all of my feelings in the last episode. And then this was like the ink on his contract had been dried for 10 seconds and for those that are extremely online, especially on F1 Twitter, the Mick Schumacher meme of like done for the day. It was like that's Checo. Like the second he steps into Q1, it's like, oh, contract is drying, done for the day. Just
got that money.
He sucks.
I just my feelings are still secure in that, especially given Red Bull's history with that second seat. I don't understand what Checo has done other than the first 3 races of the last 2 seasons to warrant that spot. I don't get what Yuki could have done other than bring a world of money and sponsorship. That weekend was infuriating. Like in Q1, who was it, Max and then Yuki? Like in Q1, he finished second.
Yeah. And
Checo is at the very bottom, and
like
it didn't feel surprising. It's shocking, but it didn't feel surprising because he's consistent with being kind of bad now. Like it would have been more shocking if he finished P3.
I listen to, as I do every week, the P1 podcast with Matt and Tommy, and they're great guys. Go listen to their podcast. But they called the Red Bull a podium contending car unless Max Verstappen is in it. And I have to agree with them a little bit.
It's a race winner, and if Checo's in it, it's a can't get out of Q1
If you put anyone else in that car, are they 50 points ahead in the championship? No. That is a podium contending car with the best driver on the grid in it.
I would put Carlos Sainz in that car right now and expect better results than I mean, Sergio Perez is irrelevant. He's irrelevant.
I would expect better results than Sergio Perez, but I don't know if I would expect results up to the level of Max Verstappen. You might have 2 or 3 Lando wins, a couple of Charles wins at this point, and like 1 or 2 Carlos wins if he's in that Red Bull seat. Yeah, you're right. I think we'd be much more even, which makes this season a lot of fun to watch. But Red Bull have an albatross on their hands, and I think they're going to come to regret that signing soon. We kind of hinted this earlier. Double DNF season for Ferrari, guys. The high of Charles' Monaco win last week turns into a double DNF this week. put the clown wigs and noses back on. Ferrari is here, guys.
They had a clown weekend.
Yeah, they did. And it's because last episode I said, guys, I think I might be a Ferrari fan now. And then I went off about how everything is so different now, where you can't necessarily trust that the car's going to blow up or they're going to blow it with strategy. And then they were like, we will show her. Welcome to Ferrari, baby. Come on in. Double DNF right after a race win.
My favorite part of it was that, Carlos had a spin, and then for some, Charles had engine problems. That's not necessarily his fault. But then they put him on the hard tire, and they're like, "This is gonna work." It did not work.
They're like, "It's gonna dry up. You're gonna be the fastest one on the grid in 2 laps." And then in 2 laps, he was back in.
He took a shot.
They made the worst call. This was Mattia Binotto peak 2022 Ferrari shooting themselves in both feet. I don't know if there's much more to be said than that, but Ferrari need to figure it out, because we're having fun up here at the front of the grid with Red Bull, Mercedes, and McLaren. And if you want to be a part of it, great. But if you don't, we're cool with 3 teams too.
Oh, and that sucks for them, especially because Checo wasn't in the points. Like, that was such a good opportunity to get 2 huge blocks of points when only Red Bull is remotely relevant. But the timing of that really sucked. But luckily, Checo will probably keep them in the running just by doing his own thing.
I just feel bad because I feel like Ferrari did they pulled the rug on Katie. Like, she fell for all the good signs. He seemed sweet. He seemed caring. He listened, and he had great potential. And then a week later, he proved to be a jackass. That's
if
Ferrari.
Katie had $1 for every time.
Well, guys, I'd be so rich that I wouldn't be doing this podcast with you.
I respect that.
Oh man.
Hey, Sean, it's Katie's time. I don't know if we have anything else on the rundown. I think that was it.
We do not. I was about to say it's a vibe. This is a vibes-based podcast, and it is time to get into Katie's official
my favorite
vibes
segment
notes.
of the day. I want bed music for this. I think I need to find some because this is my favorite segment.
This one is kind of disappointing, but there's a reason why. It's not very long. So
that's okay.
My first, for those that don't know, whenever I watch an F1 race, I just take notes of the vibes, what I'm feeling. I've had to adjust my language since I've started reading it on the pod. I'm just a bit of a wild card at the best of times.
No, I want you to completely write authentically and then just let it fly on here.
Nick.
We have no censors.
Nick. I have a career.
I know. We all do.
It's not thriving right now, but it still is technically existing.
It exists.
Canadian Grand Prix vibes notes. My first point, I stand by this so wholeheartedly. Living for Lawrence Barretto's share-like outfit changes in both style and frequency. In the pre-race show, I saw at least 4 outfit changes.
Oh my God.
There was a neon green, then there was a zebra vest over it, and then he went with a neutral under the zebra vest.
Oh.
I was every time he'd come back, I'm like, there's our guy. New outfit every time. And like I said, the style too. It was very extra. I lived for it.
He says he takes 10 pairs of shoes to every race.
What is his luggage like? How many check bags does the man have?
It shows. He has really good style. I pay attention to his style the most. Laura Winter does too. They've got a stylish group, but I'm just a fan of all the broadcasters on F1 TV. Okay. Next one, Haas on the full wets. This is when I was freaking out. And then the next point is just to follow it up with an 8.6 second pit stop because they weren't ready for the tires, exactly as Sean said. And then this is all in capital letters. Holy shit, Albon double overtake.
Yes.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that.
That
might have been the greatest overtake of all time.
I just got goosebumps even thinking about it. The vibes with him were so high after that, and then the Carlos situation wasn't his fault.
No.
That really sucked for him. It was just really, really bad luck. He was feeling his oats. He was on that overtake. I've rewatched highlights of it 25 times. It was so beautiful.
Just to recap here real quick, Alex Albon threaded the needle in a chicane, passing 2 cars in the process. It was just chef's kiss.
And it was primarily because he had nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And he was just like,
I'm going to stick my car here, and it worked. Awesome.
It was so risky. There were so many ways that could have gone south. And I bet the second that he pulled out of it, he was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
If this works, it's going to be a totally boss move.
Oh, that was so wild. Albon, and then I had big moment for Team All Hot. Then that fell apart later. And then the next point is there's the Ferrari strategy we know and love.
Yeah.
Next point, groundhog sighting.
Yeah.
It's just something that's
How
exciting
many?
to me personally. Mr. and Mrs. Hogg, every time the lower third would go up with their names during the weekend, what a gift. It was so quintessentially Canadian and cute. And then the next point is, and there goes the second Ferrari. They are so back to 2022. Unlucky crash for Team All Hot. My drivers always seem to hit each other on my fantasy team. The next point is, has Oscar Piastri ever felt an emotion?
He's like deeply under pressure. He's trying to keep the car in front, and they're talking to him about strategy, and George is on his ass, and he's just like, I'm more concerned with keeping George from passing me right now. Hold on. Like, that was it, and it was just deadpanned.
He's the most monotone, like 22-year-old ever, but it's also kind of funny.
It is so funny because even when he's so excited, those are the moments where I'm like, still nothing? Not a thing? And he had so many moments where other drivers could and would have been so reactive in whichever direction of emotion, and it was very funny that he is just like one note at all times. I don't think he ever has felt an emotion, and I kind of envy that. And then that's where they end, because I straight up was so into the race, and I'm used to taking these notes when I'm like killing time, and I'm just like sitting there hanging out with myself, having my coffee. But the race was so good that at points I was like standing in front of the TV and just kind of pacing, and I didn't have one more note. I was just like in. I didn't have any time to sit and take notes about it because I just wanted to be so present with it. First time ever.
Fully engrossed. I have one question, Katie. Did you put maple syrup in your coffee?
I did.
Yeah.
I have been every day. That has been transformative.
Canadian whiskey?
Personal question, Sean. Sometimes yes.
There we go. There we go. Those are Katie's Vibes, brought to you by nobody. But if you'd like to sponsor Katie's Vibes, you know where to hit us up. The Gridiron Podcast 3@gmail.com.
Crushed it, Sean. Great job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Moving on, let's review our race predictions for Montreal. Katie, you want to go over your predictions, or you just want me to go through these real quick?
Just rip through them.
Cool. Katie had Oscar Piastri getting his maiden victory. Max Verstappen taking home P2, and Charles Leclerc taking home P3.
Very off.
Swing and a miss, 1, 2, and 3. You're
the
out of
only
here.
redeeming factor, and I should have brought this into my podium predictions, is I said I think Mercedes might be back, and I think they might have a big weekend, and I'm excited to see it.
Yes.
That got me nowhere.
Katie said honorable mention. She spelled honorable incorrectly because it has a U in it. Who the hell puts a U in honorable? That's weird. Mercedes will be very good. I take that to mean very. So yeah, it was very good.
Yes. You're correct. V does stand for very. Sean.
Moving on to Nick's predictions. There aren't any in the docket, so I don't know what Nick predicted.
I don't remember either, but I do know that
Cool.
V also stands for Valvoline. Moving on.
I'm losing control of this podcast. My predictions were Oscar Piastri P3. He finished P5. Lando Norris in P2. Ding. And Max Verstappen in P1. Ding. Someone consider that a win for myself this week. Checking the fantasy standings. If you didn't know, we have a little fantasy competition going between us. Sans the Red Bulls, because that would just kind of be cheating. Actually, you know what? Sans. Should we just redo this and do Sans versus Max?
No redrafting.
Someone gets to pick up Checo?
Nope.
No redrafting. Just someone gets to pick up Checo and drop, Logan Sargent.
Don't want him.
Unfortunately, he's not welcome on Team All Hot at this time.
Okay.
No further questions.
That's fine. Okay. Moving to the fantasy standings, we have Nick, who has rocketed into first place because McLaren has come on as of late, and he has both Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Nick is in the lead with 192 points. In second place, myself with 183 points, and then Katie
bringing up the rear.
My team still having a mid-off with themselves.
Team All Hot is Team All Mid. She has
a lot of looks
points.
And not a lot of driving.
But you know what? You don't have to drive well when you look just so damn good.
You get
Moving
it.
on to our favorite game show. Do you even know?
No.
It's not coming back this week. We'll come back. I just wanted to scare Katie.
It worked. It worked.
I know. That's why I put it in the docket, and I could see her
My
reaction
box
now.
in StreamYard just goes
Exactly.
away. It just
Yeah.
X out of here.
She's just
Her mic's cut. She's gone.
lost it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's our F1 recap for the week. We do have some F1 or some NFL news to get to, which we haven't really had an opportunity or a chance to talk about the NFL, the grid, iron part of this podcast, the iron part. I don't know.
No,
The
you got it
NFL
right
part
the
of this
first time.
podcast. Minicamp opened this week, guys, and I've been at it all week. Nick, I don't know how much you've been delving into it with your work at NFL.com, but the big storyline is, surprise, surprise, Aaron Rodgers is in the headlines again because he just can't keep himself out of them. He ended the season with a press conference saying, basically, we got to keep all the BS out of the locker room. Only football. Only football. And then I guess he took that literally because he's not in the locker room right now for the Jets. He has an unexcused absence and will miss all 3 days of Jets' mandatory team minicamp, although Robert Saleh is playing it down, head coach of the Jets, playing it down, saying, we are, on the same page. We knew he wasn't going to be here, but it is an unexcused absence. He had somewhere that was really important for him to be. Apparently that wasn't with his teammates preparing for the season.
Okay, so I'm not one to take the blame off of Aaron Rodgers' shoulders because he brings it on himself way too often. And I think it's very narcissistic in the way he handles it. But the Jets botched this one. They could have gotten out in front of it and said, look, he's not here. It's unexcused, but we have an understanding and don't worry about it. But they didn't do that. Like they could have said, he told us, we knew what was going to happen, and they didn't. And they let it fester for 2 days. And the conspiracy theories have run wild. And everybody's talking about how Aaron Rodgers isn't at camp, and they're wondering if it's an injury related issue and he's not fully healthy, or if he's on a trip doing ayahuasca again. And I saw even a theory that he was doing ayahuasca in a submarine or something like crazy, like all kinds of nut job conspiracies.
That sounds kind of sweet, actually.
Yeah, I know. Unless it implodes like that last one. Yeah, well, that's a hell of a way to go out. Crapping your pants in a bucket and throwing up.
He comes back and he's got a selfie with the Titanic.
Yeah. But it's on the Jets, man. Like you could have avoided the spotlight if you would have handled it like pros, but they're not pros. Look, winners don't become winners and act like winners until they win. And oftentimes that's what befalls most teams, is that they never get there to the point to learn. You got to go through the playoffs once before you can really make a deep run, right? The Jets want to be winners, and they on paper are winners, and they can't win. And they can't even win in the offseason. And this time it's centered around their most polarizing player on the roster. And we are forced to talk about it. I hate talking about him. We'll see what they do this year. I don't want the hype train to build up for them, but I hate talking about him. But I know Katie has some thoughts.
Most of my thoughts will remain in my indoor voice because I've got a lot of feelings about this one. Pardon my French. I'm just so goddamn tired. Like, I was always such a big fan of his, and he has become one of the most deeply unlikable athletes I can think of. Like, one of my core values is practice what you preach. And this would be annoying to talk about regardless, because no matter what, his name has to be in the news. But like you said, Sean, this is what makes it infuriating, is that huge speech about, oh, the bullshit that has nothing to do with winning has to get out of the building. Man, you're supposed to be the leader of this team.
You're supposed to be in the building.
You're supposed to be in the building. It is mandatory in the name. I couldn't imagine a person being more of a distraction than him, being more problematic than him, being more disingenuous and self-serving than him. I would be happy if I didn't hear about this man for the rest of my life. I'm just over it. We always have to talk about it. We're an NFL show. You're going to turn on the NFL Network. It's going to be the lead story on there. And I'm just so tired of talking about it. Like you said, Nick, the Jets, they're dysfunctional. They brought on a lot of this themselves.
Which is hilarious.
Which honestly is objectively funny.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah.
No offense.
It has been very
Nick,
messy, and he's played, 4 snaps at 75 seconds?
Nick, no offense. I do laugh at the Browns because Deshaun Watson, $230 million. If we were in England, there would be songs about, $230 million down the drain, something about that.
At least he's at minicamp.
He is. At least he is in minicamp. Here's
Not
the
defending
thing.
him, but at least he's a minicamp.
Yeah,
We're not
let's make that
defending
part clear.
Deshaun Watson's
I wanna state that.
22 plus allegations. We're just saying at least he's in minicamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, listeners know how I also feel about Deshaun.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I'm not defending him. I'm
here's
just
the
saying.
thing. I kind of have some experience in this because, fast forward or rewind, I guess, not fast forward, rewind
There you
2
go.
years.
There you go.
My first training camp here in Tampa Bay, and Tom Brady's not there. What's going on? Is he on The Masked Singer? Is he what is he doing? What's Tom Brady doing? The world just went into a tailspin. But the Bucs, to your point, Nick, kind of handled it a little bit better. They said, "Hey, he's not here. We're going to prepare. He will be here. It's okay. We expect him back. He's been excused." Like, he has been excused. The Bucs handled it way better than the Jets are handling it. We come to find out he is going through a difficult divorce, which is very sad. That being said, none of us know Aaron Rodgers. None of us know what an important, quote unquote, thing in his life to attend is. Based on his past experiences, we're led to believe that it's probably not important to you and I. This is a single man in his 40s with no wife, no children, and does not talk to his family. So I don't know what the important thing is or could be, but that doesn't mean that it's any less important, right? Like, we all do need to remember that, like, we can talk about it, we can have hot takes about it, but like, if someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, this is important to me," you do have to respect their wishes about that. That being said, if we find out that it's him drinking ayahuasca on a sub next to the Titanic, oh my God, the memes and the judgment that will be passed.
Especially
At the end of the day, this is just a horrible look because, like I said, of that postseason press conference, hey, get the BS out of it's got to be about winning. This is about winning. Dude, if you were serious about that, you would be there. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm here in Tampa and I'm covering OTAs. I'm covering minicamp. Baker Mayfield has been here. Like, Baker Mayfield formed a charity organization in Tampa. He had his first child in Tampa. He bought a house in Tampa. He got a $100 million contract in Tampa. And this is Baker Mayfield. This isn't even Aaron Rodgers. This is Baker Mayfield. But he's like, "Hey, this is my home. I'm fully invested and I'm going to be here." He's with the rookies at OTAs. Like, just
that's a leader.
Exactly. I'm like, do I like Baker Mayfield? Am I rooting for Baker Mayfield now? I never liked him before. I didn't particularly care about him before, but like, he was showing me qualities that make me want to root for him as a person and a football player. Aaron Rodgers has never done that and only continues to alienate his fans, his teammates, his coaches.
He's self-obsessed, and
yes,
we continue to feed that by giving him attention. It's that simple.
Well, and it's a good point, Sean. Like, we do get so caught up in talking about them as athletes and not people, and it is so important to remember, like, you never know what people are going through behind the scenes. It's just how all of it went down. That's what's just so frustrating about it. And then when he's on this high horse, like, preaching all of these things, and then there's no explanation, like, between him and the Jets, like, all of it is just so messy and frustrating, and I just know all of us are just tired of talking about it.
Even if he came back and was like, "Oh, guys, I missed it because I got married and I went on my honeymoon," I think the reaction would still be, "Congrats," but it's 3 days. Like, this isn't training camp. This isn't a month. This is 3 days that are on your calendar. It's like, hey, make sure you don't do anything for these 3 days, and you did something for those 3 days, right?
Yeah. I'm curious to see what it is. If we ever know, who knows? But
this happens every year. We should note that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Katie, but this does happen every year with somebody. He's not the only guy who's not there. It's just that it's high profile because it's Aaron Rodgers, because he attracts such attention, and because the Jets botched it. It's that much.
Well, and oftentimes it can be a contract situation or like the Diggs situation just felt so different than this.
CD Lamb, right now. Amari Cooper, right now. Those are
Randy Gregory for some reason.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think he has much leverage.
Yeah, it's just how it's all been handled. It's like a masterclass in what not to do.
Jet's gonna jet.
I feel bad for some of the guys on that team though, because like
Me too.
there were some good like guys on that team, and just like, man,
and they're forced to answer for their narcissistic quarterback, and that's the worst part is that they're.
Well, and Robert Saleh has to come out and deal with this. Of course, all of the first questions are going to be about that.
Yeah,
and like it sounded like he did a great job handling it, but like, man, how would you not be up there fighting for your life, having to answer all of these questions when someone else is just off doing their thing, and you have to be the one to stand there and account for it?
I mean, he also kind of like asked for this too, because I'm sure his input was asked for when like, hey, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers? Yeah, hell yeah, man, let's get Aaron Rodgers in here. You knew this was going to happen. You knew he was going to be a distraction at some point or another for some reason. You knew this was going to happen, and it's happened now. It's a worse look too because he only took 4 snaps last season. Again, not his fault, but it's a worse look because you paid for this franchise quarterback and you didn't get him, and now he's doing all this stuff.
Baggage, baby.
Exactly. So much baggage. Moving on, the only other big news out of minicamp is the Steelers signed Mike Tomlin to a 3-year extension. And everyone's going to tell you, oh, the Steelers, they've only had 3 head coaches in 55 years, which is true. I'll tell you this. As a Steelers fan, I'm not surprised. I don't hate the move, but I also don't know if I love the move. I think myself and a lot of Steelers fans are getting to the point where it's like, it's great. Yeah, that's fine. Nick. See, I got this. Nick is like trying to lull me in, and then whatever I say negative about Mike Tomlin, Katie is going to chew me out about it. Like, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, okay, whatever. So I'm fine with it. I love it. I like it. The thing is, the Steelers haven't won a playoff game in going on 9 years. And you keep saying, oh, he's never had a losing season. Okay, great. But, like, that only gets you so far. And people are getting tired of that in Pittsburgh. People are getting tired of saying, yeah, hey, we haven't had a losing season. That's fine. You know who has had losing seasons? John Harbaugh. But he's also closer to winning a Super Bowl than we are at the moment in Baltimore. Like, there are. Hey, you know who's also had losing seasons? The Bengals, but they are closer to winning a Super Bowl than we are. Like, other teams have had losing seasons and are in a better position to win a Super Bowl and to win playoff games than the Pittsburgh Steelers are, and they have made coaching changes. So I think I'm fine with the move, but I'm like, show me something for God's sake, because if you also look at their playoff wins, their last couple of playoff wins are not great. They've beaten Alex Smith and the Chiefs without scoring a touchdown. They have beaten A.J. McCarron in Cincinnati barely because Vontae Burfict decided to just headhunt Antonio Brown.
Come Devontae, it's Vontez.
Oh, I said Vontae. Sorry, Vontez. Excuse me. Vontez Burfict. It's late at night.
It's late.
Vontez Burfict decided to headhunt, and then Pac-Man Jones decided to take a swing at Joey Porter Sr. And then they lose to Blake Bortles and Tommy Bohannon and the Jags at Heinz Field by giving up like 65 points. Like, just
that game was so many freaking
things
awesome
that just have happened. And you're like, why are the biggest thing for me too is Mike Tomlin refusing to move on from Matt Canada, even though everyone in the world who is just even a casual football fan knew that man did not belong in the NFL calling offenses. And he dragged his feet on firing him. He did fire him. But he did fire him. Did they ruin Kenny Pickett? We'll never know. Probably not, but
Kenny
we'll
ruined
never
himself.
know. Probably, yeah. But just all those things combined, I think, have left a sour taste in Yinger's mouth. And you're like, okay, that's fine. Like, we're fine with him being the head coach, but like, also, you need to show us something, man. Like, we're tired of defending you by saying, well, you've never had a losing season.
It's weird because I think Yinzers are pretty used to having the sour taste in their mouth, considering that they hammer icy light, but that's neither here nor there.
And sauerkraut.
Sean, all I'm hearing is somebody who sits on a throne of ease, a throne of success, a throne of privilege, one in which your expectations have become so high that you can't accept the return or aren't entirely pleased with the return of a coach who's never had a losing season. He's been the head coach for this will be 17 years. I mean, he's never had a losing season. You cycled through 3 quarterbacks on 2 different occasions, including last year. And in one of those 2 seasons, you made the playoffs and won 10 games. In another season, you almost made the playoffs with Duck Hodges starting half of those games. Okay.
Yeah.
Like if there's one coach that deserves an extension because he's been able to keep the ship afloat when it's burning and cannonballs are barreling through both sides of it and it's taking on water like hell, it's this guy. Like the roster has not been up to snuff since Ben Roethlisberger's final year. That's not entirely his fault.
When Ben Roethlisberger was playing his final year.
That's what Katie, I'm saying.
If I can interject, real quick, Katie, Nick, do you watch or follow the Premier League at all?
No, I mean yes, but no. I'm aware of it. I know what's going on, but
okay. Do you know who Crystal Palace is?
Yes.
Okay, they have been in the Premier League forever. They never get relegated, but they also never finish higher than 9th. But they also never finish lower than like 14th. That is their existence. 9th to 14th. Never too good, but also never too bad.
Yeah, it's no man's land. It's purgatory.
Exactly. We don't want to be in purgatory, all right? We want to be in the Super Bowl. We want to be in an AFC Championship game. We want to. That's fine, though. When you are accustomed to winning, you expect winning. You're still winning. What have you done for me lately?
The most. Yeah, I get it. I know. And it's a league that fires you if you don't deliver.
Look. I'm not saying Mike Tomlin should be fired. Like, I'm happy he's the Steelers coach, but I also want to see him change and adapt. I am sure about that. I also want to see him adapt and change with the times.
Well, what did they do this offseason? What did Omar Khan do? He went and rebuilt the quarterback room. He had a fantastic offseason on both sides of the ball. Let Mike Tomlin cook with that team, and let's check back a year from now and see if your opinion has changed.
That's fine, and I'm fine with that. I'm just speaking as to what I know now, and that's I need to see something here.
I'm going to give you one example. Do you think Charger fans, in hindsight, are glad that their team fired the late great Marty Schottenheimer after they went 14-2 and missed the Super Bowl because they ran to the Patriots and they replaced him with Norv Turner and never lived up to their expectations? The thing is as soon as you think the grass is greener and you get tired of being in purgatory, you open yourself up to an immense amount of risk that the next guy you hire sucks and plunges you into the basement. And then all you wish is that you were in purgatory. Watch how Browns fans celebrated when they finally made the playoffs in 2020. They had fans in this half-filled stadium crying. Jim Donovan on the call. We're going back to the playoffs, and the only thing missing is you. Like, that is, like, beloved here. That audio clip is beloved here. They made the playoffs last year with Joe Flacco. I know. Jimmy's the best. They made the playoffs last year with Joe freaking Flacco, and there was an actual serious conversation about whether he should stick around as a starting quarterback because they haven't been there. So be thankful for what you have, and don't forget to peek down the ladder at what's below you because they're always going to be coming. And if you don't watch out for them and start looking beyond into the greener grass, you're suddenly going to fall right down that ladder and wish that you were back where you were and regret your decision.
I'm a noted Mike Tomlin fan, so I was excited about it. My big takeaway, Sean, how dare you speak of St. Louis Battlehawks legend AJ McCarron that way?
The Battlehawks, man. Heartbroken. Lose the UFL conference championship game.
Caw is the law, and you will not speak of our QB like that. So
Anthony Becht, man. He'll get them there. He'll get them there.
Coach.
Yeah, he'll get them there. Big guy. He'll get them there.
I would run through a brick wall for that man. I know very little about him, but they have a great social team, so they showcase him very well. But yeah, I'm just really hyped on him. I just love that team. What a fun team.
He's great guy. I'm not saying I dislike the signing, and I'm glad they. I don't know if I'm wording this correctly. I'm glad that Mike Tomlin is our coach, but I'm also hopeful. There is always a but, but I'm also hopeful that he can learn and adapt and take this team to places that people don't think it can go. Like,
you're not
I'm looking
hopeful,
at Russell Wilson.
You're distrusting. You're demanding. You're not hopeful. You are requesting.
No, I'm not demanding. I'm not.
Or
distrusting.
else.
They got so I'll give you this scenario. They got 10 wins with Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can all agree that the quarterback room has received an upgrade. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So why can't they win 12 or 13 games this year? Aside from them having the hardest schedule.
Why are you sitting back and exhibiting trepidation about his
Because
extension?
we've also seen, Nick, that this is typical under Mike Tomlin-led teams over the past 17 years. that they play down to their competition a lot. We saw that for 3 straight weeks against the Cardinals, Patriots, and Colts. 3 non-playoff teams last year.
The Colts almost made the playoffs. That's
where, fine, but they got embarrassed by the Colts. It was over by the second quarter. They lost to a terrible Patriots team and a terrible Cardinals team in a weird rain-soaked game. Okay, whatever. But, like, they also play down to their competition. There's no excuse. And then they pop off with just Mason Rudolph and just torch the Bengals. Like, I don't understand what this team is. And it seems like from week to week, Mike Tomlin doesn't have a grasp on his team. Those are my nags on him.
Wrong. That's where you're wrong. I believe the exact opposite. I think he's been dealing with a very unfortunate quarterback situation over the last few years, and he does have a grasp on his team, so much that they were able to reach the playoffs despite not having any foundation or solidarity at the quarterback position, the most important position in sports, the one that determines whether you have a shot or not. That's why Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year. The same thing. And I'm not making a Browns-Steelers comparison. I'm telling you, Mike Tomlin has been lauded for his efforts despite all the adversity, and that's why he deserved this extension and why it was a no-brainer. People were wringing their hands. Oh, my God. My grandma, when she gets nervous, she pulls at her neck skin. Like, she goes, oh. And everybody was doing that about Mike Tomlin's contract after they lost to the Bills, to the point where he walked off the podium after the game. He was just like, Brooke Pryor was from ESPN was the one who asked him about it, and he just walked away. And at the time, I'm thinking, I get why you're asking this question. It's valid. It's going to the final year of a contract. It's a lame duck situation, but we all know he's not going anywhere.
No.
It's a waste of time.
At
3 more years. 3 more years.
At the end of the day, you know, he has over the past 2 decades just become a Pittsburgher, and he will be put in that same category with Chuck Noll and with Bill Cowher. And you know, when his time does eventually come to an end, it'll be sad. But man, I hope he can get us a couple more wins before then.
And someday, Sean, we'll run into him at Pizza Sola, and I know it's closed, and hopefully he'll
closed.
be high as a kite. Just like.
By the way, Katie, we also saw a rat in the restaurant that night. So, like, you know, that's the kind of place
beautiful evening.
Oh, it was a great Pittsburgh Southside evening.
Southside downtown.
Love that.
All right.
My honorary love for this week is hearing Sean talk about the Steelers, especially Mike Tomlin. I saw that on the rundown, and I've been hyped all day for that.
I will, Good. And I knew you'd have strong opinions about that. I'll talk about the Steelers anytime you want, Katie.
That's where we're going.
Moving on, let's do our last segment of the week. Let's do Hate It or Love It. Nick, cue the music, and Nick, you can start off with your hate.
Well, as we know, I don't play the music live because it drowns us
out.
I know,
but that's just for the podcast.
I don't know. I honestly don't have a hate or a love. And it's like a lack of participation. I'd get a 0 in class for this, and I never got zeros because that's the number one way to tank your grade in school. Youngins, if you're listening,
Nick, you've had so many concussions. How would you remember?
I don't remember most of school, but I remember enough to know not to get a 0. I don't really have a hate. I don't think. No, I got nothing.
Okay, Katie, what's your hate?
I'll package my hate and my love this week.
Cool.
Keep it nice and tidy. This week is the anniversary of my huge cancer surgery. So June this week is always very tough for me, but it's also celebratory. It's all of these different things. But yeah, June sucks. Largely, it's a very traumatic thing to go through, and it doesn't just go away when it goes away. But it's also a good thing I'm still here. I'm cancer-free. But yeah, it's a very distracting thing. You're never out of it. Even when you're a cancer survivor, it's always right there beside you in some way. So that's my hate and my love. I hate this week, but I also kind of love it because I'm here.
Well, we're glad you're here with us. We're thankful you're here with us. We also do want to say that, Katie, we do not hate this month because it is June. It is Pride Month. And so is it Pride Month in Canada too?
It's Pride Month everywhere.
Well, I don't know how Canada does things. You put you in the
Pride
word
Month
honorable.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we want to celebrate Pride Month.
So we can also
say
happy Pride to all of our listeners as well.
Don't hate June.
I want to say one thing real quick. Every time I see Katie say or like type favorite or honorable and there's a U in there, I pronounce it in my head as favorite.
I pronounce it in an English accent, like a British accent. Favorite. honorable. Like, I just do like the English accent, you know what I mean? My hate this week is a bit more superfluous than Katie's. Feel bad going last.
Yeah, mine's intense. Sorry, I went first, guys.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay though. It's okay. God. Mine's bad customer service.
Yes.
So my girlfriend and I 2 weeks ago went to a Rolling Stones concert in Orlando at Camping World Stadium, and we were super excited for it. It was her birthday present. We kind of made like a weekend trip out of it. Even Orlando, the Camping World Stadium is like an hour and 20 minutes from where I'm sitting right now, so we can drive there and back easily, but we just decided to spend the night in Orlando. We also decided last minute to buy tickets to park at the stadium because parking was $50, and we'd been to concerts at the stadium before and knew that an Uber there was like $50 and an Uber back was like $90. So we're saving money by paying $50 for parking at the stadium. So we bought a parking pass. We get to the stadium and we drive past our parking lots to pull up to the front of the parking lot G. And we pull up to the front of parking lot G and are told, hey, sorry, parking lot's full. No, but we paid for a parking pass. Yeah, but we're full. Go to the next lot over and they'll let you in there. And the next lot over, guys, was like 75 yards down the road, so it wasn't far. Like, oh, okay, whatever, no problem. It's like 7 o'clock. Concert's at 8, no opener. Stones go on at 8 o'clock. All right, cool. We go over to the next parking lot. There is a padlock on the gate. Hey, guys, don't worry. We got a supervisor coming over with the key. They're going to get you in here. We'll get you out of here real quick. All right, cool. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes later, a line has now started to form, and we're like, hey, what the hell? A guy in the front of the line gets out of his Jeep and is like, what's going on? Oh, the supervisor's coming with the key. Yeah, you said that a half hour ago, and they're still not here. Where's the key? What's happening? We all paid for parking. We need to go. All of a sudden, I look in my rearview mirror, and guess what parking lot G is doing? Letting people in.
Perfect.
So the guy in the front of the line in his Jeep pops a Yui, goes the wrong way down a one-way street. So screw it, I do the same thing.
Hell yeah.
And he pulls up to parking lot G and starts to go right in. All of a sudden, I call him Whistle McPants because he had like cargo capris on and a whistle. Starts blowing a like metal whistle and banging on the side of this guy's Jeep. Now, if you live in Florida and you see a guy with a lifted Jeep with a Punisher sticker on the rear, don't touch his car. Just rule of thumb.
Did he fight him?
Guy gets out of the car, slams his car in park, gets out of the car. It's Nick, he was your size, also bald with a beard. So basically you in a pair of like Oakleys. Basically like in a cutoff t-shirt, cargo shorts.
So he was the Punisher skull. He was the Punisher.
Pretty much. Yeah, he was the Punisher skull. And towered over this guy with the whistle. And the guy with the whistle was like, she told you couldn't park in here. He was like, I paid $50 to park in here. She was letting in cars. She's going to let me in. Guy gets in the car. Conversation was over, and he goes to the back of the parking lot. As I said before, we drove past our parking lot. It was not full. Like, we knew it wasn't full. But after that whole ordeal, they definitely weren't going to let us in. So I get told by the whistle guy to turn around and go back down. I said, but it's locked. He goes, you got to wait for the supervisor with the key. I was like, where is he? We get back down to the gate that's locked. And at that point, it's like 7:35. So Stones are going on in 25 minutes. We still got to park and walk to the stadium, get into our seats. And Aaron had enough. She gets out of the car, slams the door, starts running back down to parking lot G. Some guys that were in like green vests that didn't work for the parking services, they were just guys taking your money, telling you to park on the side of the street, hustling you.
Just guys being dudes.
This guy was like, hey man, that's your girl? I was like, yeah. Damn, she's so angry. I was like, you would be too. I was like, we paid $50 to park there, and they're telling us to come here. It's like, oh yeah, we don't work for them, man. I'm like, all right, cool. So I reversed into a parking spot, and I was double parked, so I couldn't leave it there. But I just wanted to park to keep an eye on her and keep an eye on the locked parking lot. Another 10 minutes go by. It's like 7:45 now, and all of a sudden I see the supervisor walk up to the gate, not with a key, but with bolt cutters.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting for. Florida, baby, Florida.
Come to find out,
I love
that
Florida.
parking lot is not owned and operated by Camping World Stadium. It is owned and operated by Jones High School in Orlando, Florida. So Jones High School, if anyone's listening from there, they cut your lock off illegally, and they had us park on the practice football field. Nick, we had to drive around blocking sleds.
Hell yeah.
Because there's just blocking sleds in the middle of this grass field. But we parked in there. So bad customer service. It's like they woke up that morning and were like, oh shit, are the Rolling Stones in town tonight? Oh, we should get ready for that. And then just did not get ready.
Yeah. I feel like I just ran a marathon through that story. That was a hell of a story.
Sorry.
I have a hate, I realized.
That was
I went and played.
beautiful.
That was great, Sean. Thank you. No notes. I went and played pickup basketball today at a park in Lakewood, and I hate when you realize that you are out of shape or old. Like, I work out all the time.
Yeah.
I do cardio all the time, but like, I'm getting up and down the court, and I'm like, I am gassed. By game 2, I am gassed. I'm not playing defense. I'm barely getting rebounds. I'm not myself on the court at all. And I was just like, dude, I have to go like start training to be able to do this again. What the hell happened? Like, post 30 cliff, I just fell right off of it. So I hate that.
There is a post.
It's tough
30
out there.
clip. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait till I'm sore tomorrow. Sean, what's your love? Because Katie already packaged all hers up.
My love would be the fact that Aaron and I got to see the Rolling Stones, because that was awesome. That was a treat.
That's amazing. What was the best song they played?
My favorite is either Sympathy for the Devil or Painted Black. They played both of them, but we were taking bets on what they would start with. And to be honest, we didn't know. Like, we had our guesses. And then all of a sudden, you just hear drums, and then you hear "Start Me Up." I'm like, come on, that was obvious. Like, of course, they played "Start Me Up." It was right in front of my face.
I would have liked to Give Me Shelter more too. I think that was.
But,
Ooh, just hearing that guitar come in, I would have cried my eyes out.
Oh man, it was a cold open. Like, it was just drums and then "Start Me Up." That was great. So the whole concert was great. For them being in their 80s, they sounded amazing. Worst part about it was Ron DeSantis was also there, and they shouted him out.
Ew,
Didn't have to do that, Rolling Stones. Yeah, they did take a slight dig at him because they made fun of him and Mickey Mouse. You know, the whole Disney spat, but whatever.
Oh.
Did they talk about his heels?
No, I said something about that though, and got some looks from the people in front of me.
Were they Florida men?
Well, they were
Florida women.
Florida women. Oh, even more fun. I have a love real quick. Gonna keep it brief. I won another Super Bowl in the Madden League. Woo!
Love that for you.
Yeah,
love that for you.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. Guys. Cool. Great. Yeah, we're out here in a cool hour, 20 minutes. This has been episode 36, the boss episode of the Gridiron Podcast.
Was high.
The bus was high. My fantasy name for fantasy football. Do we have Spain next week, guys, or is that a week hiatus?
It's a week hiatus.
Week hiatus, and then Spain, arguably the worst track next to Monaco on the F1 calendar.
Watch your mouth.
I hated Spain.
Watch your mouth.
So
we will talk about that next time.
That's fine. Yes, we will talk about Spain next time on the Gridiron Podcast. For Nick Shook and Katie Caldwell, I am Sean Barry, wishing you all a very happy night, evening, morning, whenever you're listening to this podcast. As always, drop us a like, a listen, and leave us a 5-star review if you don't mind. That'd be great. And as always, you can email us at thegridironpodcast3@gmail.com. And as always, live life in the fast lane.
And if you ran into Jerome Bettis high, send us an email about it.
Always interrupts me. Always.
Best part of the pod.
Good night, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Good night, Pittsburgh.